How you doing, guys? I'm your host, Mikey Jayy, and as always, I'm super pumped for today's episode of KGUP Presents because we have the one and only Rose777, so you're not going to want to miss this episode, and we'll be right back.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You know I had to tell him. Yeah. The earth is flat. Bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof, and I landed on the moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D, like a video game from 1983. Sides scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Call me B.O.B. cause I don't see the curve. Messing up my vibe, yeah, you got a lot of nerve. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. They say that we okay. For me and my homies, we don't say it, we just pray it. I'ma leave it, I'ma stay it. Do your research, how much I gotta say. This flat, bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof, and I landed on the moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D, like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Y'all sleep. Y'all sleep.
How you doing? I'm Mikey Jayy. Thank you for watching this edition of KGUP Presents featuring Rose777. Now, over the past year and a half or so, Rose has become one of my favorite people. You might know her from Poppycock Report, Brew with Karen B, and my favorite show, The Baby Truther Show. Or you might know her from her channel, Rose777. And if you've ever contacted crow777radio.com, more than likely you got a reply from Rose herself, because she's become an integral part of their operation. And that is also one of my favorite shows. And if you haven't heard my interview with Crow777 and Jason Lindgren, you need to check that out. That's on episode 16. So I wanted to bring Rose on the show basically for two reasons. If you guys have been watching the show consistently, you'll notice a pattern. All of my guests that I've had on this show are all people who I enjoy personally and watch on a regular basis. You know, I love getting to know the people that I encounter and admire. And I just want to share my discoveries with you guys. And because I've learned so much in the span of like the last 2 years, and everyone that I've had on this show so far has had a major impact on my life in some way. So in a way, this is kind of like a tribute show. And the second reason is Rose has a lot of experience on living wills and affidavits. Even just this past week, I hosted a small flat earth meetup gathering, and I gave out copies of the wills and affidavits, and it was, you know, a very short notice. So not a lot of you even heard about it until after the fact. But, you know, I did reach out to the majority of the members who were within a 30-mile radius, which was about 150 people, which is quite a few. And thanks to David Weiss and his amazing Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, Zodiac, and Clock app, it was a success. And I got to meet some very cool people at Vector Brewing. And we all got to watch Glitter play. She's also a Flat Earther. And, you know, she was on stage. And so it was a great show. And it was a great time for all of us to meet one another. And I'm so glad that you guys came out. Big shout out goes out to Rafa, Crash, Melissa and Ray, and of course Mary, and of course Glitter, my wife, who is the performer there. So thank you for coming out and hanging out with us to talk Flat Earth. That was a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing it again, hopefully soon, and definitely next year. So with that said, let's bring her on, the gal of the hour, the very inspirational, the one, the only, Rose777. How's it going, Rose?
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. It has been a long time coming. We have been planning this for quite a while, since way before Oktoberfest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've been talking back and forth. So how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It has been pretty hectic as usual at Crow 777 Radio. We're a three-person team, and we're just constantly trying to get out good information for our listeners, and it just takes a lot of work. So on the one hand, I'm physically tired but like energized at the same time, because I love my job. I love what I do, because all I want to do is help people and find ways to prevent people from going through things that I've gone through. And I've learned a lot, and so, like you've said, like I've compiled a lot of information together. So I would not call myself an expert on anything, and I would never trust someone who called themselves an expert. But because of my unique position of always finding guests, having a massive show with a constant influx of recommendations, combined with some kind of weird, maybe intuition that I get from the guidance of Crow, I have compiled information that I truly stand behind. And that's why on my show and channel, during this age of censorship and my disdain for government regulation and just the whole corporate Lex Matoria world, I like to say that I am a medical doctor giving medical advice. And I also like to say that I'm a lawyer giving legal advice, because I think that it would be so ridiculous for anyone to be worried about that, because I think the onus is on every individual to have their own discernment. So if someone's even called a lawyer or a doctor, why would the onus be on them if they give bad advice? Because in fact, lawyers and doctors do give bad advice all the time. So it's actually comedic, because in my mind, by saying that, I'm giving myself less credibility, which is why it's a joke.
Yeah. They constantly make mistakes, and
Yeah.
That's why they have a license, so they can get revoked if they do something malice, But how did this all start for you? You are like really busy, especially now these days. But a year ago, before you had your show, what were you doing before that?
Before I had my YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't even know when I began to become aware of the fraud and deception that is our world, and that the Matrix movie that I saw back in the 90s was starting to feel like maybe a metaphor for what's actually going on. That whole process for me, I'm going to have to take you back a lot farther than a year ago. So I woke up, we'll just call it like that, to this fraud. Like I had my boom moment in 2013 when I saw on YouTube a 9-hour natural law seminar by Mark Passio. Okay. So that was the catalyst where I had been putting things together, that there was something wrong with the world. I didn't fit in with anything. Nothing made sense. I never paid taxes for any of the jobs I've had since I was 14. I always checked the box exempt without having any, I don't belong here. Like, we are living in a fraud. But what really made me understand the underlying causal factors that that is making the human condition get worse is what really helped me. So that was understanding natural law, which involves understanding morality is objective, and then also understanding that any form of government is abdicating your divine sovereignty, and therefore slavery and immoral. And so from there, I then went on my own, journey of trying to figure things out and find good researchers. People like, if I went through the names, there would be a lot of people listening to this in the community that would say, oh, shill, or that person was wrong about that, or that person was wrong about that. But, we all remember that movie Zeitgeist that came out that covered religion, it covered the financial thing, and then it covered 9/11. And it's just or even something like loose change. I think that was something that Brian Stavely saw that affected him, that then turned out to be kind of controlled opposition or misinformation, right, as you could say. So I went down this path, and then something very crazy happened to me in 2016. Maybe I can come back sometime to talk about the whole Phoenix rising out of the ashes story. Mm-hmm. But everything fell apart in 2016, right in the year that I went to Philadelphia to meet and go to the Free Your Mind conference where Mark Passio was headlining. And that's where Jason Lindgren was as well attending. And we didn't even meet that day. We saw each other. And I remember thinking that Jason looked like he would have like some kind of German accent. So if you know what Jason Lindgren sounds like, that's really funny. So then during this time of my life, just to make it as succinct as possible, homeless, lost absolutely everything, got married to a crazy person, and was in, I realized, wow, for 3 years, I've been researching. I thought I understood the truth. I thought I knew how to conduct myself and protect myself from this system, and I don't know crap. So then Jason and I went back to the next Free Your Mind conference. Jason was not there. I was heartbroken that he wasn't there. We found each other on Facebook and then started talking there. And I took a leap of faith. And I moved in with Jason in an inaccessible, wheelchair inaccessible trailer in Baton Rouge on a leap of faith.
Oh, wow.
And shortly after that, met Crow for the first time. I had never known anything about the lunar wave. And I started listening to them when they were doing their recordings and how important this was. I wanted to start. Thank you so much, Jason. He just brought me coffee. I thought this work was so important, and that what they were doing was so great, and that their chemistry was so fantastic, that something special was about to grow, and that things were growing. And I decided that I wanted to offer to join the team as like a glorified secretary.
Sorry.
So that is how I ended up with Crow and Jason. And then I was behind the scenes, and it was under Crow's recommendation that, like him, he's in the public, but I mean, he keeps a private lifestyle, and right. I'm very outspoken. I'm very silly. People respect Crow 777 radio for its serious research. And so it was a risk for me to start a YouTube channel because I didn't really want people to see my personality. I feel a little bit too silly and ridiculous because with me, like for example, for a time I liked acting because I have such a disdain for humanity. And so sometimes it's like a way to escape and just escape the reality that I have so much disdain for. And I just never knew what I was meant to do, but I now I feel like I've put all these pieces together. And when on March 11th of 2020, I was in the hospital with a NG tube, and the doctors actually told Jason that I might not make it. And in a members only episode, looking back, it's like I feel so bad. I didn't want people to feel bad, but they're like, Rose, it's really serious. Like they said it on the show in a members only episode. And when they declared the emergency, I was in the hospital. I pulled out the IV. Oh, no, first what happened was Jason came to visit me and they tried to take his temperature. And that's when I knew immediately it's happening now. Now it's happening. I need to leave this hospital AMA. I pulled out my IV, I took out the NG tube, and I left AMA immediately. And I guess I guess I wasn't going to die, right? So at that time, I was leaving the hospital from the whole, it would be too long to talk about my paraplegic rearranged organs, but I talked with Andy Kaufman. And I knew that I needed to start speaking out. And even if maybe I don't know as much as Crow and I'm not as professional as Jason, but I do have an opinion, but it doesn't belong on Crow 777 radio. It would be a conflict with their energy. I would always want to interrupt. I just needed to do my own show, but I could not do my own YouTube channel if I remained on all of the pharmaceuticals that allopathic medicine has put me on since my stroke in 2005. When I moved in with Jason, I quit opiates. I got off of an insane amount of Dilaudid slowly using something called Subutex, and Crow helped me through it emotionally through that time. And I also at the same time quit smoking cigarettes using the vaporizer. And I was transcribing the show and not wanting to take a break and drooling on my keyboard. And so I realized this is such BS, and I'm getting more nicotine by being able to smoke inside. And anyway, that all ended. But what I was still on at the time of March 2020 was Xanax and Ambien. And it was really not a good situation. Those are terrible, terrible drugs. And plus, it made me feel like a hypocrite for everything that I've learned. It's just that after 10 years and the serious irreversible surgeries I've had, the doctors have also told me that if I quit taking in benzodiazepines, I would die. Oh, it's great that you quit opiates, but you can't do that. Well, Dr. Andy Kaufman told me, you know what? The way that you're taking it now, because you have such a high tolerance, you're running out of it after 2 weeks, and then you're going 2 weeks without it. You're killing yourself going in and out of withdrawal. Guess what? You can just stop. And Dr. Andy Kaufman is a person who is a licensed medical psychiatrist. And maybe I just needed someone who had a white lab coat to tell me that it was okay. And I quit, and I did not experience the symptoms of withdrawal, because it turns out that all of my most horrible symptoms was because I was killing myself with all of these pharmaceuticals. And so by quitting those drugs, I felt comfortable starting a YouTube channel because I didn't want to be a drooling idiot and a bad representation of Crow 777. So that is when I started my channel, because I was able to quit those pharmaceuticals. And because they had implemented the iron-fisted control. This is the long game, and now this is the home stretch.
That's crazy, because just looking at you today, you would never know that you were going through all that, and that you were addicted to these medications, because your personality, you're so outgoing and so talkative. And I've listened to a lot of your shows when you were on the Bitches Brew, and then the what's the report? What's that?
Poppycock Report.
Poppycock, yeah. How could I forget? But I would have never known that you were going through all that. And it was such a mystery for me.
Yeah, well, it's really funny because when you're doing live streams, see, I moved to Louisiana, and that's when I kind of became more of I guess a public figure, as you can say. Like, people are seeing me, but only from the neck up. And then so before 2017, I was living in California with all of my friends that I grew up with in high school, all of the people that I became friends with over the years through working for Citrix Online, a massive corporation. And also, I've been an internet geek, meeting people all over the world from the internet. And when you meet people all over the world and you're a paraplegic, you really have to discuss things so that it runs smoothly. You know what I mean? So right. It's really funny because my paraplegia is the first impression that people have of me in public. And it does affect the way that people talk to you and address you. And then, on the internet, it's just from the neck up. So there's a lot of people who have no idea that I am completely paralyzed from the waist down, and I use a wheelchair 24/7.
Yeah, I knew you were paralyzed, but I didn't know the story. And we can probably get into that another time.
Yeah, we'll have to do like the medical history episode.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you were saying about all the meds and stuff that you were taking, and like I had gotten a car accident back in 2004, and it just changed my life. Like, wow. I was, mentally, I was disabled because I allowed the doctors to give me all these experimental things, and I was taking them and just believing in them. And it was really just debilitating me more and causing me to gain weight and causing all these extra like anomalies that were happening. And depression, I wasn't sleeping, and just I was having pains everywhere, but it was because I was being poisoned.
Would you mind if you recall what medications? Because I had an incident in 2004 too, so it would be interesting if we were both put on the same protocol.
Neurontin was one of them.
Yep. Neurontin, yes, that's for neuropathic pain. A lot of times they'll do Neurontin with gabapentin in that drug class, and they will naturally, by default, give that to people who had an accident, which doesn't make any sense because magnesium can probably do the same thing. If you slam yourself with enough magnesium, your cells are going to relax enough. It's just that nobody wants to do the work, because in order to find out how much magnesium you need to take enough to give yourself diarrhea and then lower the dose right before that.
Oh, wow.
But I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. They gave me naproxen sodium and then Prilosec.
Of course.
And that was just kind of like a standard, plus the ibuprofen, and then Vicodin was very controlled.
Very interesting. Let me interject there. Okay, so wait, go through the first one you mentioned there. You said that Prilosec, that's actually a PPI. There is no reason to give a patient that in the hospital after having an accident. They by default will give you, it's actually called Protonix in the hospital, but then the over-the-counter is Prilosec. And these proton pump inhibitor medications, also known as pantoprazole, cause stomach cancer. And it doesn't make any sense, because what it does is it stops the production of acid in your stomach, and acid is what you need in order to digest and absorb nutrients. So like all of these drugs, it's a Band-Aid, and they put you on that on top of all of these other things for no reason, just that you were a patient in the hospital. And then naproxen is basically a leave, and Vicodin is an opiate mixed with Tylenol. Now, we could do a show on just why Tylenol is bad. And to me, I do not think that Tylenol should be mixed with Aleve. Of course, a doctor will tell you, oh, it's okay, this and that. But you see here how we all trust doctors, but we're two people that have never been to medical school. And right now, if we talk to a doctor about what we're saying right now, they would just think that we were a bunch of hippies that were into like natural herbs and shit. It's insane. They're that brainwashed.
They're not trained to know any different. And
exactly. So it's like that brings up the philosophical question of culpability. I mean, is there an excuse for ignorance now? I mean, they really have. I can tell you, my stepdad's a plastic surgeon, and he does a great job, cutting people apart and putting them back together again. But I would be very concerned if he was a medical doctor. I would constantly question him and ask him, do you pay attention? Do you read what medications you are, or do you just remember back to when you were in medical school for the best you can recall, and just go with what the authorities are saying? Yeah,
I don't think they don't have any time to do any like deep research.
Exactly.
They just get these protocols and they follow them, and that's it. There's no time to really question anything.
They've been leading up to that. They've been putting that into that mindset. I remember when they started coming into the hospital rooms with iPads and asking a question and then clicking something and then asking it. So that is how they have successfully killed 700,000 people with remdesivir, because doctors trust in the science. And I mean, they are supporting their families. They're working so hard. Like, for example, my stepdad's a plastic surgeon, but he moonlights as an ER doctor for free if someone shoots himself in the face or gets a dog bite. You know what I mean? So he doesn't care. He doesn't care about like the difference between whether fiat is more or less moral than crypto. He just wants to work hard, for provide for his family. And he likes being in the matrix. A lot of people like that. And so what we need to do is we need to free our minds from this comfort addiction that we've gotten.
Right. It was just like we were trying to watch Cowboy Bebop last night because it premiered.
That's the only anime I like.
And we got through halfway through the first episode, and I'm like, all right, I don't know why I'm watching this, because since I was a kid, I loved space. I loved science fiction. I loved Star Wars and everything that came out that involved space. And now that I'm like, a flat earther and know it's all BS, that it's hard for me to go back and immerse myself back into the matrix to enjoy something so simple, because I'm just looking at it from an awoken's perspective, and I can't enjoy it anymore because it's just mind control.
I totally know what you mean. And you know what? For example, Crow, he doesn't enjoy classic rock anymore. I mean, there's some stuff I'll listen to, but it just doesn't interest him. But Jason, he knows about all of the social engineering of the 60s and the Beatles and Jim Morrison and all that stuff, but he could set that aside and enjoy it. For me, I used to really be into slasher movies. I used to be into professional grade gore effects makeup. Like I can text you a picture or something, you'll be shocked. And, that doesn't resonate with my soul anymore. It doesn't interest me. I don't feel like Crow always references a movie. He's like, John Wick, this relates to this and this relates to that. And I still haven't seen that movie and I won't see it. I don't know what the hell he's talking about because it's been several decades since I have really watched television or movies. So I actually am of the Crow 777 team. I am less aware of the news unless it's something like someone sends a link that's significant to truth, but anything pop culture related or a movie coming out, I usually don't know what the heck anyone was talking about. I remember it was like in 2015, I had never heard a Lady Gaga song in my life and couldn't tell you what her music genre was. So I think that has really helped me.
Yeah. And then working in the music industry, like I can't listen to anything mainstream now because I'm too aware of like the frequencies and like the embedded algorithms. Yes. And you can feel it if you go through long periods of time of not listening to anything mainstream, you notice it immediately. But if you listen to it all the time, you're not aware of it. And you don't know that you're being hypnotized, because I immediately feel aggravated, irritated, and I feel angry. And so I know it's the music. People will tell me, "Oh, you're crazy. It's because it's because you just support your independent music artists." I'm like, "Well, yeah, there's a reason for it now. But now that I understand about the frequencies, I know why I was feeling the way that I do.
Yeah.
So I just don't even turn it on."
Yeah, you know what? I totally get it. And Crow and conspiracy music guru Alex, when we recorded our first episode with him, where we actually played some of his songs that he pre-recorded to pretend like we were live. And when we were getting ready to set up in the morning, I go in and I was telling him, I'm like, I need to listen to your Solfeggio album in order to reverse what I just did to myself headbanging to Norwegian black metal. And I was saying it as a joke, but it was true. And he said, his response was serious. He says, well, that doesn't sound very good for you. And then it took a moment where like my heart. So you know how I just said that I don't want to watch slasher movies. I don't want to watch blood. I don't want people to see people die. I care about people so much. But like Jason, when it comes to music, even though it's done in 440, I totally headbang to heavy metal all the time. And we just had a guest over the weekend and we spent hours in here just going back in time, listening to it. And we were like looking on YouTube for stuff that like wasn't the music video, that like didn't show the lyrics, because we didn't want to mess up the vibe, right? Yeah. It's more about the nostalgia programming. So I think you have to find balance between accepting that we are programmed and that we were exposed to things during certain formative years. And so if you look into your heart and like, I don't know what word to say, I guess I'll just go with Holy Spirit, because statistically people will know what that means the most. But if you just look into the morality, and so my heart says, you know what, for me right now on my journey, I don't need to make it look like my brains are coming out of my head every October. And I don't need to watch Nightmare on Elm Street every October 1st. You know what I mean? But if David Avocado Wolf is coming over without notice and we want to do a random stream about Brown's gas water and colloidal silver, we are going to harness a positive energy by headbanging to Megadeth together. because the intention. So I could have converted Tornado of Souls by Megadeth to 432 with an online program, but it's just not good enough. What really needs to be done is it needs to be recorded. The instruments all need to be tuned to 432, and it needs to be recorded that way. I'm not saying it's not better to use the converters online, but like I said, it's all about, it's like with diet. For me, I can't watch slashers, but I can listen to music. You can't listen to that music, but maybe there's an anime that you can watch that, or not. You know what I mean? So for me, I haven't seen Cowboy Bebop since I woke up. And so when I remember Cowboy Bebop, I'm not thinking about the space aspect of it. Could you share with me what you noticed when you were watching an episode that like triggered you, other than the fact that they were just in a spaceship?
Well, in the opening scene, there was this heist in the casino, and then I don't know his character because I didn't watch it long enough to know the characters, but he came out of the elevator and just started wiping everybody out, and I'm like, oh, does he realize he's working for the elitists by killing all these guys who are trying to heist the casino? And the guy who was doing the heist, I mean, he was like, I used to work in a casino and they fired me, and it was kind of like his revenge. But it's like, you're attacking all the little people who work for the elitists. Go for the elites, that's my thinking. Like, go for the owners, don't attack the bottom dwellers,
Okay.
Go for the jugular.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you explained that, because for me, like the storylines are kind of fuzzy in my mind. I just remember that I had been introduced to anime, and the only one that I liked was Cowboy Bebop. So while I thought you were going to say, oh, they said planet, they said gravity, you were discussing the violence and the vigilantism and the mercenary aspect of it. That I didn't even think of that, because I'm so programmed and desensitized that when you said Cowboy Bebop, I thought, oh, the programming is about space, but really the true programming is this whole violence thing. So yes, if I watched it again, I'd be like, why am I watching? It doesn't make sense. Like, I don't really care why this guy needs money to like get bounty hunter, because that's what he is, right? He's an intergalactic bounty hunter.
Right.
Like, that one doesn't interest me now, but I did at one point say this is the only good anime there is.
Yeah, and just this year we stopped watching like horror films and slasher movies because we've both have equally woken up, and we're both, my wife and I were both flat earthers. We see the truth. We listen to the religious, non-religious scripture study with Karen B and Just Jack, and so our minds are like just more open. And so watching these, I don't remember what we were watching. I think we were watching Halloween, and I was like, we don't really want to watch this. So we just turned it off and put on something, happier. And, but that's just been our journey this last 2 years, is just, we can't re-immerse ourselves into something we don't believe in, because, it's like our eyes are just way too open now.
Absolutely. And it's always, we're constantly just trying to search for the right thing to do. And, also with diet, you'll hear about people that say that they were healed from one illness by doing one thing, like eating nothing but fruit. And another person will say that they healed their bodies by doing nothing but eating meat. And so that's very interesting. And if that is correct, it means that even though they had the same symptoms, perhaps there was a different causal factor. And now we know so much about the power of our emotions, our intentions, epigenetics. And also we don't even know if we know the truth about DNA like itself. So I think that in science, like when I was in college, I took an early childhood education class where they mentioned what epigenetics were. And the way that they just mentioned it, that like a cursory glance at the topic, is that epigenetics are the methyl molecules that surround the DNA. And if you think of DNA as instructions for how your cells are going to grow, the methyl molecules on the outside of that are like an on and off switch. So let's say that you and I are brother and sister. We both have the same parents, and if there is anything to, hereditary genetic disorders, or cancer being hereditary, which is probably not true because we know the truth about cancer. I'm just giving an example. This idea of these hereditary things. Let's say that we both have what is called in allopathic world a predisposition to diabetes or something like that, even though we know diabetes is caused by diet and everything. But because of my epigenetics, my on switch might be on, so I'll get diabetes, and your off switch will be off, so you won't get diabetes. So the real thing is, how do we control epigenetics? What do we need to learn about epigenetics? And what they're leaving out in science is consciousness and intention. They're completely leaving out the metaphysical. And the more away they get from nature, and the more they get to hypermaterialism, the more that this perverted version of medicine is really going to be exactly that, murder. So like I said before, these button pushing doctors, I hate to call them that, but after a year, I will not change the tone of my voice, because I hope that there might be doctors out there hearing me, because there are nurses that are smarter than you out there that know what's going on and know that the protocols that you're following can't possibly be good, because they're watching your patients die after you write the orders. So the thing is someone like my wonderful stepdad, who has done so much for me. He's a plastic surgeon, so luckily he doesn't have to deal with people that are sick. But let's say that someone with a heart and a soul of goodness like him, in the Jew culture, a mensch, he would probably just want to do the right thing and follow it, because Fauci declared in May of 2020 that remdesivir is the best choice and considered the first protocol to treat what is called COVID. And in 2019, there was a study that Fauci was completely involved in and aware of, where they tested remdesivir with other things like hydroquin, which we can get into whether or not that's pharmaceutical, so bad or good, and then like antibodies, and then ivermectin. And we know that our is at least better than remdesivir. And in that study, basically we learned that remdesivir kills 30% of humans, and that 50% of the patients in that study died who took remdesivir, and therefore the study stopped because they didn't want to kill more people. And that is the study that Fauci referenced when saying that remdesivir is the best drug, safe and effective for COVID. And so all of the doctors out there just believe that, and they didn't click the link. They didn't click the link to the study that said exactly the opposite of what Fauci said. And that's called revelation of the method. That's called, we're going to put it right in your face what we're doing to you. You stupid monkeys are going to get exactly what you deserve. And you know what? They're right. And sometimes I wonder if these people who are trying to cull are actually in their minds thinking that they're helping humanity. Because here's another mind blower for you. I'm going to get real crazy. Let's go into this is nothing we would talk about on Crow, the idea of the hominoid. Think about what human being would do this to humanity? What human being like Fauci would implement something that would be the biggest genocide in the history of man, 700,000 people in such a short period of time. These can't really be humans, right? So what if there is some kind of hominoid creature on Earth, and they're the ones at the top that are the puppeting the human beings that we know the names of? Like maybe there's this other species, and then there's the names who are so rich that we don't even know their names. And then there's the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And then there's all the actors on the political stage. And everyone's just being blackmailed because someone got a video of them having sex with someone who was too young. And the hominoids do, that's how they can get us. You know what I mean? Did any of that make sense, or did I just go off on a crazy tangent?
It makes perfect sense. I think we are the image of man. That's why we're called human. And because we're in the image of the original man. So I just think that these psychopaths that control the narrative in the world, I mean, they're the ones that are in complete control, and people like Fauci are just really puppets.
Yeah, so he's a puppet, but the people who would want him to do that, what's wrong with them? Like maybe it's because of all the incestual bloodline lineage that psychopathy has been bred into them. So while they're breeding us into farm animals that they don't respect, they're breeding themselves into this God superiority and trying to bring forth the transhumanist agenda. I think that is very possible. So it's not that the hominoid thing is like my crazy little jab into the interview, but that's obviously just conjecture. But what makes more sense is what you say, is that there are royal bloodlines, that people who have had knowledge for thousands of years, and that they don't even know how to, like, did you ever see when that royal guy, because like I said, I don't watch the news, so everything's secondhand, but I saw a clip of this royal guy that was being interviewed about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. And like, it seemed like this guy was so disconnected as a prince that like he didn't even know how to act in such a way that he didn't sound evil. Did you recall seeing a clip like that where he's trying to justify being friends with Jeffrey Epstein? It's a prince or something.
Well, he probably had no idea. I mean, he was probably left in the dark intentionally because he wasn't part of this lineage. He just happened to be a part of the bloodline. So I don't know. I mean, who knows what goes on? I really don't dive into that part of the world because it's so hard to prove, you know? So
Right. No, well, I'm just saying that I saw a clip of a person of royalty being interviewed. And it was almost like they didn't have someone there to explain to them how they should act. Like, they've been bred to psychopathy so bad that when they think that they're giving a good response that a regular human would accept, instead they don't realize that they sound like an elitist prick.
So he wasn't briefed, and you know, like an act. I mean, all these people who get on television who speak for whatever organization they represented, they have a script. They know the line of questioning that's going to happen before they get the question. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be on television.
Right.
And so everything is planned. I do believe that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's planned. So what I'm saying is, let's say that he got the questions in advance, so he knew how he was going to answer them. He knew what to expect, and he knew what he was going to be lying about, like how he was going to conduct himself. But he did a crappy job because he doesn't spend enough time interacting with the regular plebes. That's my point. Yeah. Is that he couldn't play the part well because he's that much of a different, like, species, but then again, you've got people like my mom, and Jason and I showed her like some pretty good montage footage of Biden being a little bit, like just wait, did I lose audio? Just him, like the way he's smelling people's hair. And my mom, who's a very staunch, like, my mom like thinks that she has something to do with Obama getting elected. Like, she's just like really into being a Democrat and like, we can do this, blah, 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 totally vaccinated. She's looking at this like thing of Joe Biden and all the smelling and the music, and it's all creepy. And afterwards, Jason and I are looking at her and we're like, we can't wait to see what she has to say. And she said, well, I just think he's a very affectionate man.
Oh yeah, that's what they all say. Oh my God. My mother-in-law, she's kind of like in that. And my wife does a better job of flat smacking people, and we had this like long conversation that I would never touch because she's my in-law, and I was like, you go ahead and lead the way, and she was like, and then made all these examples and showed her video clips of Joe Biden and that same montage, and I was just sitting there like, yeah, I agree with her.
So it's all a matter of perception, and also what knowledge you have. I mean, we have background knowledge, so it's obvious to us. Yeah. But if that was like a montage that was interlaced with other grandpas who love their grandchildren, like in the editing, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's all about the belief, the preconceived notions and your cognitive bias. So that's why we try not to have a cognitive bias. And that's what I learned from Mark Passio, is that what you have to do is you have to balance your brain. And I'll preface this by saying that it's not true that there's like an actual left brain or right brain. That's metaphorical. So your left brain is like the masculine, the logic, the action, and the right brain is your like feminine intuition. And you don't want to be imbalanced, because if you're constantly thinking about what you're going to do without the intuition to inspire, then you won't take that action. And I like to call that paralysis by analysis. But if you're always going by your feelings and your intuitions, then you're not going to be heading in the right direction, because if you're going on a, mile-long hike and you take the first step in the wrong direction, you're not going to end up in the right place. So it's all about having that alchemical marriage within your brain, where you're neither too skeptical or too naive, and you can hold an idea in your mind without accepting it or rejecting it. And it's a practice that you do where I can consider a thought without getting an emotional about it. Can we do an example right now for you and your audience? I'm going to say something, and then we're going to just see. I'm going to, as an example, I'm going to say something, and then your audience, there are going to be some people out there that are going to have an emotional reaction, and they're going to try to hold the idea in their mind without being too skeptical or too naive, and just think without trying to get emotional. All right, here we go. There are some studies that say that people would get much better and healthier if they drank their urine.
Ew.
So everyone hearing that right now, did anyone have an emotional reaction? I still do. When I hear that to this day, I'm like, no.
I'm afraid to try that.
What?
I'm afraid to try that.
Well, Amanda Vollmer, she calls it the first catch of the day, where your first pee, you pee a little, just like you're giving a sample, and you take a shot of it with your orange juice. And there is evidence to support this. But like I said before about eating the fruit or the meat, everybody's different. And there are so many different ways that you can heal yourself. So for me personally, urine therapy, it's not something that I'm probably ever going to try. But I am willing to try a lot of other weird stuff like RSO oil for cancer. If I was diagnosed with cancer, I would slam myself with so much RSO oil that I would need to be put in a baby cage so that I wouldn't hurt myself, or get into the van naked and drive away. So, but some people, if they get diagnosed with cancer, they would never take RSO because they just don't want to feel the THC psychological effects. So maybe for them, they'd rather try that. So everybody has multiple options. No one should ever feel bad that they're not trying something that, other people that helped other people. And nobody should ever think that something that worked for another person is going to work for them. We are all our own researchers with our own bodies that were born in different geographical locations at different times under the sky clock. And, our parents and grandparents and everything they ate, which is affecting the evolution of our microbiome. What do you think of that?
I think it's great. I mean, you can't force anybody to take something, and plus they have to believe in it. If they don't believe in it themselves, it's not going to work no matter what they take. So there's a lot of I take a lot of things, but if I don't believe that it's going to help me, more than likely it's not going to help at all, because our body and our mind have a physiological response. And so whatever you're taking, it could be a placebo, but if you believe it's going to heal you, it's probably going to heal you.
Yes, I am so into that. Have you looked into the work of Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so they're too popular now, and I can't get them on Crow 777 radio. And same with Wim Hof. So those are some really good researchers that you might want to look into, because then maybe you can keep moving the research forward, and we can get some more less popular people talking about the topic and working together to harness, because that's the idea is the power of combining the mind and the body. It's that whole alchemical marriage of giving your body the components, the building blocks of life. And then there's your energetic pathways, like the whole idea that, this tooth is like part of a voltage through my spleen, and maybe down through my femur artery, and there's all these voltage pathways if you look into Jerry Tennant. So everybody's different, and so for me, I feel like if I really do my own research and I know my body and how things affect me, I'm going to try things just like one at a time, maybe give it a couple weeks. And then if I'm not noticing an improvement, go to the next thing. Because we have only so much time on earth to try all the supplements and remedies in the world, right?
And people are constantly spouting off what they take and their suggestions. And, it's not always going to be the right combination. I mean, there's so many, I mean, I constantly learning and trying different things. And all right, well, here's the cocktail to help you prevent you from getting COVID. And, and so I just
the symptoms associated with what it's called COVID.
Yeah. But if you toxify your body, I mean, you're going to catch a cold and it's going to have the same symptoms and it'll look like you probably test positive.
Well, if you toxify your body, then it's going to be really hard for you to get rid of those toxins if your colon and liver are not clean. So you could probably get away with getting toxins in your body if you have a clean liver and colon. So it's actually the people who don't have a clean liver and colon that are more susceptible to those symptoms. Yep. And so I think it's all about prevention, prophylactic measures. And then if you have symptoms of something, it means that like something's off with your energy and that your body is detoxing itself because it couldn't handle the environment. So like, for example, people will get colds. Like I actually get nauseous sometimes when the weather starts to change because my spinal cord is like, what is going on? How do I regulate this?
Yeah. Actually just this past week, I've had really bad allergies and I've noticed that I've been looking in the sky and I see all the chemtrail sprays. And it's affecting me. So they're spraying hardcore to change whatever weather that they can to make it cold. I mean, Dallas was like one of the originations of weather modifications. I mean, you can look up their website. It's just weathermodification.org. And it started in 1971. And so they've been testing.
You got to listen to episode 73. Episode 73 on Code 777 Radio is on weather modification. You want to hear a really interesting fact about weather modification?
Sure.
Okay, so according to international law, you are not permitted to modify the weather when a war is declared. So remember Agent Orange in Vietnam and all that stuff? That wasn't a war, that was a conflict. The last declared war was World War II. Yeah. And since then, we have never officially by Congress declared war. It's all been conflicts, and that's because we're always modifying the weather now, and there are documents like I'm sure you know about the one that says owning the weather by 2025.
Yes,
so
actually I saw a lecture at Yale, and this was done in 2017 that they were going to start the weather modifications in 2020 and there was another article saying that they were going to start weather modifications in 2019 in Nevada. So they've been doing it this entire time, but they put out these articles just to cover their tracks. But
yeah, it's revelation of the method because first it was crazy chemtrails. And then they started calling it geoengineering. And then they say, we need to do geoengineering in order to save the planet. Of course, then blaming the humans for, cow farts. So it's just, it's poppycock beyond the pale.
Right. Because I remember being a child and laying on the grass. I mean, I have very specific memories of laying on the grass, watching planes go by and watching the contrails disappear as the planes would fly by. And nowadays, I mean, they never disappear. They're there the entire day and they spread out and it just looks so artificial. And I'm feeling the effects. Like I should not be having these allergy attacks like I am. And
well, I actually know how to help you with that too. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. So the way to heal your allergies forever, unless we're talking about some new weird nanoparticle that's going to fry your brain. I'm talking about like the regular allergies. If you're feeling the symptoms of allergies every year and you're like, oh no, it's that time of year where I get allergies, this is what you do. You find a beekeeper in your local area and you get a jar of raw organic honey from that farmer in your area, and you slam that entire thing of that local honey, or maybe eat half of it and half of it the next morning. I don't know if that'll give you a tummy ache, but just eat it all at once as much as you can. And the next year, you will not have allergies. Now, if you move locations, you might have to do it all over again for that location, but that's the key. The bees know. The bees are the ones pollinating all these things. So I think that's the connection, that their honey is like the antidote.
Well, when I first moved to Dallas, I did just that. We went to a farmer's market who said they lived within, within the area where they sold the honey. And so I was putting it in everything. And I was good for about up until about the end of this year. So I probably just need to do it again.
Just eat all of it, get all of it, and then eat it at once. Like just be like, look, this is like me trying to take a shot of whiskey and I don't like the taste of alcohol. Just eat the whole freaking jar.
Otherwise I have to take a nap every day. I'm so freaking tired. I have a headache. I feel like I have vertigo constantly.
And this is since you moved to Dallas?
Well, this is recent.
Or since because the spraying is what you think. That's your hypothesis is the spraying. I think that what can be going on is that it's just a full spectrum attack, and what they're spraying is just is probably different from region to region, because I look at us like we are a huge petri dish and they're experimenting on us. They're seeing how certain things affect people in different areas.
That I believe.
They're testing out how people respond to different disasters or natural disasters. So I think that they're just trying to, get that data. Like, in fact, this interview that we're having right now is kind of, in a way, informing the artificial intelligence, however you want to look at that, and the data collection about how people like us think, how people like, oh, why does my computer say it's running low on battery? Why does it, what was I just saying? I'm so sorry.
They're collecting data. So whatever
they're collecting data, we're giving them more information, so they'll figure out they'll statistically figure out what the next thing they can do to confuse us.
We're satisfying their analysis.
Right.
It's like, oh, we really are affecting them. Look at these conspiracy theorists. They're telling the truth.
That's why when all these things happen, like for example, the concert thing that happened where people just had heart attacks and passed out, that is just so interesting to me. But I'm making an effort not to waste my time focusing on that, because I find it very interesting. Is it that the graphene oxide in the vaccines were interacting with the EMF frequencies coming from the instruments, or did they intentionally add frequencies to the music? Or, sometimes shit happens and, people will have a heart attack because they were very smushed together. I mean, there's so many theories, and I've already wasted brain cycles and time during our interview, even giving attention to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I'm going to scoot over and make sure my computer's plugged in so I don't just disappear.
Oh, because are you on a laptop?
Yeah, and because the webcam on my other desktop makes me look like a fuzzy angel with a halo around me, and I can't figure out why. So I just put my laptop in front of my computer. What is going on here? Why is this not charging? And that's the thing, is like, I love doing these guest appearances, but I always have to make sure I'm set up, and Jason has to work on editing the show. We're about to put out a new episode as soon as possible. Oh, did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, so it's plugged in and I don't have to bother Jason.
Save me. Yes. So I don't know if you know, but I'm a teacher, but
I
some
do
of my
know, and that's what I love, the fact that your show wasn't always about this stuff. And you're a teacher, so not only are you influencing children in a positive way just by the energy of you being a real human that understands the divine spark is going to have an impact on them. I know it. Thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't even influence these kids, and they come up to me and they came up with these great ideas, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are like reading my mind. I mean, I don't even teach this stuff, and yet they're coming to me and like, oh, I'm an anti-vaxxer. I don't believe in it. Can I write this article? I'm like, yes, please. And then and when I find articles, I'm like, here's another article. Like we found an article by the University of Georgia, and they discovered that they were putting graphene oxide in the flu vaccine.
So the kids found that out independently of the news and the conspiracy world.
Right.
That's incredible. You know, there was a statue that I grew up with in Santa Barbara at this place called Franceschi Park, where we would always go because it's a mansion that was donated to the town. And it was this weird, and I always wondered why the statue said this, but around this little child statue, it said inscripted in the stone, the children will save the world. And I never understood, like I would try to wrap my mind around it, but now I understand, because you can't suppress the human spirit. So even if they were able to, brainwash every single adult out there and make every child used to vaccinations and injections, there's always going to be hope, because there's always going to be people like you and me out there that will just see that something's wrong and that they will not accept it. Right. And so while there might be good times and bad times, and while we might, as a result of human chosen willful ignorance, we might go through a time of discomfort as a result, there will be a better time again. And one last thing before I switch it over to you is that 2020 was the year of perfect vision. We've been seeing this coming. We've been talking about it on 777 radio. If you listen to it from the beginning of the show, you'll hear us talking about 2020 coming up. We first started really talking about it when Crow's channel was removed in 2017 after talking about the Las Vegas event. So then we jump in from 2020 to 2021. That's where we are right now. And 2021 is blackjack, the idea of the 777. So you can look at 777 as a positive or a negative way, but it's a very special number. And so then the next one is going to be 22. Now, 11 is what they call the evilest of numbers, as Aleister Crowley says, but there's no such thing as an evil number. It's all about intent. And in Freemasonry, when you double a number, you double its power. So 22 would be the master builder number, but 2022 is even tripling that. So I see 2022 as laying the foundation of something that's being built, the goals. So this is the time for us to fight, because it won't work if they don't lay that foundation. If nobody ever put on a mask from the beginning, none of this, we wouldn't be where we are today. So we have to be really careful in 2020 to not capitulate to any new things that might come out, like a microchip or whatever, because then we're going to get to 2023. And what is 2023 backwards? 322, skull and bones, death's doors, 44. We got to think about the ideas around death. So when we are talking about the topic of depopulation, a lot of people do like to predict these things. And I did my own little version of like conspiracy theorist, numerology stuff. But the point is that we are going down a path, and we don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but there's a plan, but there will always be hope. Even just one person that makes a stand, like if someone makes a stand in a room full of people that you think are all going to be against you, you might inspire someone there who was too afraid to do what you just did. So never, never, never give up being the one person in the room that does the right thing.
Yeah. I have one of these co-workers, she's a teacher as well. And she lost her mother to COVID. And, I little by little was like, you need to stop watching television, stop living in fear, stop complying to all this. And, at first she was very resistant, and she was, believed everything that she was being told. And then after she lost her mom, she turned off her television. She started to like not comply. She stopped wearing a mask everywhere in the classrooms. And little by little, there was like a little bit of hope. I can see this like little light in her, that she realizes that, we're being lied to, but she can't really be open with everybody. So I'm just giving her, an opportunity that, like, you can always talk to me. And because it's very, I have to be really careful. Like, thankfully I have friends that are awoken and don't comply, and they're against all the mandates and all that stuff. And we all have to like stick together, because if it ever comes down, like, we all need to band together and fight it as hard as we can, because force them to fire us if we have to. But
good. I'm glad you brought up that point, because anytime I put my voice out there, we have to make sure that people don't quit their jobs.
Yeah.
Getting fired is your golden ticket for a lawsuit for wrongful termination. It's all in the mind. It's fear and suggestion. Do not forget what they're doing is illegal, and that anyone who might tell you otherwise, they just don't know that they know not what they do. So let them fire you. Well, this is the opportunity for me to just say on the show, you really, if anyone is being threatened that they need to get vaccinated to keep their job, that they need to wear a mask, that they want to do anything that they don't want to do to their bodies, please contact me. And what I will do is I will send you the complete updated list of our law series and the documents associated with it. And I will give you the tools necessary for you to protect yourself, because there is zero excuse. When I see someone, anywhere on social media or the internet that says, oh, it's so unfortunate I had to take the jab for my job. BS. It means that either you were too lazy to fight for yourself, or the information wasn't available to you and you didn't know. So that's why I'm trying to constantly convince people to not only contact me to learn this now before they're put into that position, so that they're ready to go, but also so that they can help their friends and families as well. Strength in numbers. I had one office, my friend Steven, he gave my paperwork, and this was a while back when the package was like 6 documents. Now we've got 37 in the package. His daughter shared the package with the other people in the office that didn't want to do it. She had no idea, but the document spread, and 40% of the office submitted the documents. And so they were like, screw it, we can't run the company if we fire 40 people, and they just removed the mandate. It really is about just standing up for you are a human.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we had our little meetup over the weekend, and I gave out a bunch of copies, and I've been emailing them like crazy. So anybody who's watching the show right now, if you want the living will or affidavits, or you want the whole package that Rose gave me, because you can thank Rose, because she's the one that gave me the packets. So, and according to you, they're increasing. So there's more information.
Yeah, you pretty much, if people should email me at like maybe once a month by default, or just stay up to date on the episodes. Like, for example, we're about to record an episode with someone who was able to successfully decline the vaccine for a multinational company that is a government contractor in a very high level position. I don't want to talk too much about it, because I am connected to this, like, I want to help the people around me, right? So I am very close to it, so I want to say as little bit as possible. That's but amazing. Not only did it work for him, but it also worked for his sister-in-law. He gave it to his brother's wife, and she works for a different multinational government contractor company. And it worked, the same paperwork worked for both of them. So those, I already have those documents, and I already am going to be including them in the package, but you have to wait for the episode to come out before you understand like the story behind those documents and what they mean. So it is all about listening to the episodes along with the documents, so you understand the difference. Another thing that I don't know if you've received from me is the Steve Socha documents. Did you hear the episode with Steve Socha? Because that's important.
I've heard all of them so far, and I've been going backwards in the episodes. So I was down to like 173. And then whenever you guys post a new podcast, I go all the way back to the beginning. And so I forget
That's
to
how
go
I
back.
did the transcripts. So for your listeners, like this is another example of why you should keep in touch with me. So Steve Socha, who's a listener of ours, he took a combination of the knowledge that he learned from the law series, and he took a document and he read it to the school board for a system in Ohio. And his son didn't even go to that school district. His son, well, he should have been homeschooled, in my opinion, but he goes to Montessori. But because this mandate was happening and he cares about the children, he put together this document. He read it out loud to the school board. So we did an episode about how the mask mandate was removed as a result of that, and provided the documents so that anybody can go and just present it to their school board in their local area, along with the letter that he read to them. There's a second document where he gives instructions, explains things a little more. And so sometimes people will email me and they'll say things like, please send me the documents for Steve Socha. And I'll send that along with the updated law series list so that I don't overwhelm them. But then other times people send me everything you've got. Or other times someone will say, oh my gosh, I really want to have a home birth, but I just want to be prepared in case for some reason the baby's breached and I end up in the hospital. How do I have an affidavit? So my recommendation is that even though it might sound overwhelming, ask me for the whole entire package. Read the whole thing, and then you'll get a holistic comprehension. Sorry, someone's calling me on Skype. I can't believe you. And you'll gain a holistic comprehension of these ideas, because every situation is different. And here's the other thing. When you're dealing with these button pushers who are just following orders and doing their job to tell you that you have to do something, I mean, they don't really know what they're doing. So I mean, you have to sometimes come up with like a dumbed down version for them, or you have to stand your ground a couple times in a row. Sorry that call distracted me from going in the right direction, but I'll give you another example with taxes. All right. Here's a little secret about taxes. I mean, anyone who's watching the show here knows that it's a fraud and that our labor shouldn't be taxed and it's unconstitutional, but nobody wants to like poke the bear and deal with it. You know, like goes without, that whole topic can go out without saying, but I'm going to give you the bottom line here. We have a lot of people that contact us that don't pay taxes, and they are business owners and they operate within the system, but they don't want to come on the show. They just want to like let us know that it is true, it is legit. So like I said, I'm not an expert, but with all the people that I talk to, here's the common thing is that you stay in honor and you write letters to them and you prove to them that you really did figure out, you know, I figured it out. This is fraud. I'm exempt from this. This has nothing to do with me. And no matter what document you send them, no matter how you send it, no matter what method, the truth is that you really are, like they really are breaking the law. So what happens generally is you are put to the test psychologically. They do psychological warfare on you. They'll come to your door. They'll send you letters. They'll threaten you because that's all they've got. They've just got fear and suggestion. And there's 3 times. I don't know why this is the people that contact me. And this goes in other areas of the law world too. I don't know what it is, if it's like a synchronism thing or if there's some kind of spiritual reason, but 3 times you stand up to them and you really know your stuff, they'll never bug you again. They won't mess you up with you. It's done. It's all in the mind.
Right.
So when you get people like when you get those people that they put on the news who go to jail for taxes, like who was that guy who was Wesley Snipes?
Oh yeah. There
was some story about him. It's just because he didn't know. He didn't understand it was fraud. So he probably just went through their system and like hired an accountant or who knows what happened, but they really put the story out there for the agenda so that people like us would be too scared to be who we are, which is a human being.
Wow, Rose. I mean, that was a lot of great information and we didn't really talk about flat earth, but we could probably do that another time. But
I could go a little bit longer if you want to talk about flat earth.
I mean, I guess I would just ask, like, how did you come to the realization that the earth was not a sphere.
Not a globe. Okay,
I mean,
so
all you have to do is look and just observe, honestly.
yeah, but you have to make the decision to do that
Yeah.
to really open your eyes instead of looking down at your phone and listening to whatever expert is on there talking to you, or whatever teacher told you something. Maybe you had a teacher when you were young and you really respected them and you loved them so much, and you would think they would never lie to me. And like, how could there be a teacher that didn't know what they were talking about? So it's like, this is all from the beginning. Now, for me in high school, the one thing that I struggled with, I was a straight A student all throughout high school, until of course I got sent to military boot camp and didn't do my senior year, but that's another story. So in physics, I had questions about physics and I felt like the teachers didn't have a good answer for me. And since generally I, like with chemistry, that was easy for me because that's equations, balancing equations,
Right.
or, but with physics, I had some problems. And so I kind of just stopped asking questions and regurgitated. I actually, at the end of a semester, had a B+ and I talked my way up to an A-. I don't even remember how I did that, but I never questioned science after that because I thought maybe these concepts are just not the kind of intelligence I have, as there are many forms of intelligence: emotional intelligence, spatial intelligence. I mean, you're a teacher, I don't need to tell you. So I didn't pay attention, and I loved Neil deGrasse Tyson. I loved how he would always say, let's bask in the majesty of the universe. You know what I mean? All those like
Lord.
buzzwords and things like we are stardust. And I would follow that page on Facebook. I fucking love science. And I'd see like the Cat's Eye Nebula. Then I'd like post and be like, oh, I just can't believe how insignificant we are. you know?
Why wouldn't you believe in space?
So then I'm hooking up with Jason. I moved in with Jason. And by that time, I'm like all in with the Passio crowd where, he doesn't accept flat Earth. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Mark about flat Earth, but it seems to upset him so much that, everyone has a time to look into something. You never want to force it. But at the time, right. I'm a very open person. And also I don't mind triggering people. So like I wrote a post and I'm like, I'm interested in meeting a flat earther. And it just became this huge thing that I didn't want to get into. But I move in with Jason finally. And I'm looking at the lunar wave for the first time. And even when they were recording, I'm like, when is this guy going to stop talking about Crow? Because I just want to listen to Jason because I'm falling in love with Jason and I just want to hear his voice. But then I'm listening to Crow and more, and then he started going into the idea of seeing too far. And then also with all of the false flags, Jason is very close with David Weiss. So I remember when our kittens were born and I would like be playing with the little kittens, I'd hear Jason stomping back and forth talking to David Weiss, and I'd be hearing things. And so, Crow doesn't call himself a flat earther. He says the earth is misdescribed because he doesn't want to join groups.
Right.
But I finally woke up to it because of what Jason and I did at Lake Pond. Well, okay, hold on, let me back up. Jason did a presentation on social engineering at the Flat Earth International Conference in 2019. And when I went there, I had no interest in being seen there because of the mockery that was made of that Netflix documentary. Yeah. I really had no interest in it. I just wanted to support my boyfriend, and I only really entered the building for his presentation. And so in 2019, and by that time I had already met David Weiss when we did our Shoot the Moon meeting in New York. And it was like, oh, David Weiss is the flat earth guy. He's got the app. So I wasn't a flat earther at that time in November of 2019. And then Jason and I, after that, we took our P1000 to Lake Pontchartrain here in Louisiana. We live on the North Shore in Covington. So we went to Mandeville, and with the P1000, we did this many, many, many days. And depending on the atmosphere, it's really frustrating. It's just the timing, the weather. But one day we zoomed in on the top of the Superdome. So you can look at the skyline of New Orleans right now, and you'll see that the Superdome is a bright white roof. There is absolutely no other thing that could possibly be when you see it. It's a domey white dome. There's no other building like it that size. And so it definitely was the Superdome. Now, Lake Pontchartrain itself, the bridge that goes over it, the longest bridge in America, is 24 miles wide. The Superdome, according to Google Maps, is 33.5 miles away, but I wouldn't call that exact because when they're talking about driving, you know, so you kind of have to imagine your head. So I tried to be nice to the globe. And so I reduced it to 30 miles, you know, just for the left turns and right hand turns, and did the math for that because the Superdome is 273 feet tall. So according to the heliocentric model, 8 inches per mile squared, that top of the roof should have been hidden by the supposed geometric horizon. Now, the people who believe in the globe will cite something called refraction, that light is lifting up the image of the building so that you can see it. But then if you look into the equation it's actually not refraction, it's a made up equation that they call standard refraction, and one of the variables of that equation is the radius of the earth, and we have only dug as far as 8 miles into the earth, so they're pre-assuming one of the variables. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean,
so when I plug it in,
miles we've only dug.
if I plug it into the thing and I just pretend that the Superdome's 24 miles away, it should have still been hidden by the geometric horizon. If I was 15 feet tall, it should have been covered by the geometric. I played with the equation all the way. I was very nice. I did my best, but I'm sorry, the 8 inches per mile squared equation is incorrect in the realm that we are living in.
Refraction is complete bullshit, because otherwise it would look like a mirage, and it would be wavy, and you would see a reflection of light. So the dome would just be like a reflection of light. It wouldn't be the actual building, you know, like they said in the news, like, oh, what you see here is a mirage.
It's a mirage.
Yeah, it's total BS. And
I know. It's really all it takes. So that's what it took for me. And so for me, I am a flat earther, and I do take on the label. And so I'll tell you my reason in opposition to Crows is that I am so angry at the ruling elite, or whatever you want to call it. I'm so mad at that I got lied to. It hurt so much that I got tricked. I can't believe that I voted for Bush. I can't believe that I thought that Clinton was cool because he talked about pot in 1992 on Nickelodeon. I can't believe that I got brainwashed into watching TRL after school at 3 p.m. That had Britney Spears, even though I was a metalhead. I never understood the world. There was something wrong with it. And so as a statement of my disdain for where we are in this world, I am a flat earther. We have been lied to, and that is the basis. Anyone I know who says they're a flat earther, I know that they have poppycock radar, and they're not going to get tricked. And so they're probably not going to be dangerous to me by, complying and making humanity fall into the pit of despair.
That's why I love being a flat earther, because it doesn't just wake you up to the curvature of the earth. It wakes you up to everything. You detect bullshit when you hear it, and you're just more aware of like your surroundings, what you're seeing on television. You know that it's a lie, that everything on television is not real. So I don't remember what actress it was, but she said, if it's on television, it's not real. And I wish I tried looking up that quote so many times, but I can't find it.
You'll probably find a lot of people saying stuff like that. I mean, I remember that there's a clip of Denzel Washington saying, if you read the news, if you don't listen to the news, you're uninformed. If you read the news, you're misinformed, or something like that, that demonstrated that he knew right. It's poppycock.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, on the Baby Truther show, for example, I'm on the Baby Truther show with Alex and David and Jaron. And a lot of times when they talk about news stories, I really just don't even know what they're talking about. And I don't know what to say. So it's kind of rough for me on that show because I want to talk about things that like are on my mind that I think are important. So maybe maybe I should ask them to preface their conversations with a little synopsis
Yeah.
for those of us that don't pay attention. But Kelsey, my friend Kelsey, who I woke up, that's the first video on my channel. I knew that that's why I started my channel, is I knew that if my friend Kelsey could understand that the COVID hoax was real, it was a hoax, that she could open up to flat earth. So I told David I was going to flat smack her. He said that he'd show up for it. He put it on his flat earth map. I had over 200 people watching my first flat smacking. And so then the next day, Kelsey bent over and showed her butt on a live stream. And that is why my channel got attention, thanks to David Weiss and Kelsey's beautiful butt.
That's funny. Yeah, I just watched that today. So.
Oh, my Kelsey flat smacking, or the one where she bent over?
Yeah, when you told me you were going to be late, so I was like, all right, I'll just finish watching this.
How funny. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's only a year ago. A lot's happened since then, though.
Almost 2 years, though, man, because that was the beginning of 2020, and now we're at like the end of 2021.
Yeah, it's crazy. 2 years.
I just reposted my rant about masks that I did. I think it was in June of 2020, and I just reposted it because I just feel like my call to action was not, it didn't happen. But I mean, now if I just can keep trying to get people to understand, I'm just never going to give up, man. I'm never going to give up.
Well, I was really nervous to be open. I knew I needed to speak up because I had a platform that I could just talk about what was happening, the hoax and flat earth. And it took me a long time to have the courage to do it because I feel like, I feel like I'm not as articulated in explaining flat earth and all the evidence. Like I know a lot, like I can pull up stuff and I have all these notes, but it doesn't come out of me fluid. And so that's why I love just having people on and having people on who know more than me, because I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still a sophomore because I became a flat earther at the beginning of last year.
Right on. So we're like almost twins, kind of, with the timing. Have you interviewed Bob Nodell yet from Glowbusters? Not
yet. I'm a little intimidated because he's
you don't need to be. Oh, no. He also likes Megadeth. He's a headbanger. He's cool. He's a normal guy just like you and me. And I had him on my show to help explain to me when I did my first flat earth debate. Afterwards, I was like, wait a second, am I dumb? Am I dumb? Did I just make a fool of myself? And then afterwards, like, no, Rose, you did great. And they gave me the reasons why the stuff that they said back didn't make any sense, but I didn't have the foundational knowledge of physics to recognize what they were saying as correct or incorrect. Like they talked about like how mass attracting mass and how boats can like magnetize and fly towards each other. And I was like, well, I never heard of that. So maybe they are right. So it's really important just to stick to the basics because it's so obvious. But I could tell you now about Bob Nodell in that hit piece they did on him. They make it seem like he proved the spinning of the earth.
Yeah.
But I had him on my show to explain why he actually proved that it wasn't. So there's this 15-degree drift that they say is detected by a gyroscope, which would match the 24 hours per day. Okay. Yeah. So they Franken edited the whole movie together, and Jaron said that's interesting, and they did this and that and the other or whatever, and there was a 15-degree shift. But check this out. Bob did this experiment at 2 different locations. So imagine the Colorado mountains and imagine the Colorado Valley at the same latitude. And at the same latitude, they got a different result. So if they get a different result at the same latitude, it's not due to the spinning, but I can tell you what it could be, which would make perfect sense. Imagine the flat earth model. Imagine a toroidal field of the luminiferous ether, and like the North Pole is the whole part of the donut, or how a tornado is moving faster below, but at this altitude, it's spinning at a different rate, right?
Right.
So what the gyroscope could possibly be detecting is the luminous ether, but it's definitely not the spinning of the earth.
Right. Oh, that makes perfect sense. I've heard that before, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around it, you know?
But after time of when you see, you don't feel intimidated by anyone in this community, because all of us want to help each other understand that it really is that simple.
I'm not
So it just like with the legal stuff,
it's more of
no,
a,
not by them.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's more of an admiration. It's like he's like the top pedestal, you know, because he's the one that, I mean, Bob and Cammy, I mean, they're so, they're so experienced in this research field that, you know, it's kind of like, oh my God, you know, like the first time I met Jeff Gordon, I was able to ask him a question and I couldn't think of the question because I was like starstruck, you know. And that's what it was. That's like.
Why it's good to write it down in advance. But you know what? I think that, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't want to speak for Bob and Cammy, but I mean, I don't really see them invited on shows very often. And I would be willing to guess that they wish that people would invite them to go out and spread their knowledge. Now, I hope I might get a message on Skype any second if he's listening and say, don't say that, Rose. I don't want to go on other shows. But it's like, or maybe he would be picky because there are so many trolls out there.
He's open to it.
He'll be open into it if you're a flat earther and if you're just trying to learn. You know, man, it's like for example, he'll never go on Modern Day Debate because whoever they'll have debating him is an idiot, and it'll just be an ad hominem attack. But Bob and Cammy, they want to share their knowledge, and for people that are open and aren't trolls and trying to like put them into a trap to mock, that's for David Weiss. David Weiss likes to talk to those people.
Yeah.
He likes to talk to people who think flat earth is stupid.
I mean, he's like a professional at it now.
Yeah. And I'm actually probably going to be doing some more flat smacking with him soon, thanks to Kelsey finding people who are willing. It's harder and harder to find people that will do it, because most people are catching on.
Yeah. I'll definitely reach out to him. I definitely want to work on my documentary. I'm working on a flat earth. It's kind of like my journey to how I became a flat earther. And then, you know, because I'm going to talk about, you know, when I was a kid and how my dad told me not to touch the globe because that was Satan's work. And that was my first introduction to flat earth, but we weren't known as flat earthers. We just knew that the globe was a lie.
So you've always known that the globe was alive?
And we never discussed it. I was 6 years old. And so the way he reacted, don't touch that. And so I was scared. So I never brought it up again. What do you mean by
touch? What do you mean by touch? Like there was a globe in the house that you weren't allowed to physically touch? Or you're not allowed to touch the idea?
We went, I don't know whose house we went to. And we went to go visit that person. And then they had a globe just sitting on their desk. And so I reached up to grab it because I just wanted to play with it and spin it. And my dad said, don't touch that. And I just said, why? And he's like, Satan created that. And so,
oh my gosh, that is such an interesting story. What is your father still with us?
Yes. Yeah. He's
why don't you ask him? Oh, well, he's a flat earther now.
He doesn't remember saying that. And when I told him like all this evidence, and he's like, yeah, the earth is flat. Like it was just like regular, like he always knew.
But he just was one of those chill people that just didn't need to like talk about it. It was just fine enough for him to internally know. And he figured you'd figure it out for yourself one day, maybe.
Right. We never got into any like deep conversations about it, but all the stuff that I would send him, like, you know, the videos that David would post, I would send to him and he would just like watch them and, oh yeah, that was cool. But he's like more into like all the COVID deception.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that more. But does he? That's so fascinating to me. Is he Christian? Is he like a biblical cosmologist? Is that why you think he?
Until I was about 11, we were Jehovah's Witnesses. So
okay,
we didn't subscribe to the pagan rituals because they were pagan.
Right. So you didn't celebrate Halloween.
And we had Bible studies on the Book of Enoch, which reveals a lot of information. And the Jehovah's Witnesses of now, they don't even study that. So it's very interesting how I'm curious when it changed and when they removed the Book of Enoch from the studies, because it.
Well, not only that, but as someone who doesn't know that much about the Bible, um, religion always creeped me out. My parents grew up in like the Jewish world, and there's like 2 days of the year that Jewish people go, and I always just couldn't stand going there. I got a really bad vibe from it. None of it made sense to me. But I mean, but do you think that maybe he, so like with the Jehovah's Witnesses, they ascribe, okay, so what I'm taught as someone that wasn't taught biblical stuff, isn't there a debate about the validity of the Book of Enoch, and has that changed or been injected into the world mind? Because from my like novice understanding of it, the Book of Enoch is a questionable book that people aren't sure is actually part of the Bible.
That's always been
and they can't be sure where it came from.
And then there's those that believe he was the great grandfather of, or grandfather of, Noah. So was supposed to precede the Book of Genesis. So it was supposed to be included, but it was taken out and I don't remember how or why, or if it had to do with the King James version, or, I didn't really investigate that part of it. I just knew.
Well, a lot of people talk about the Book of Enoch, and I should probably read it just so I can have a perspective of my own. But maybe it was during the rewriting of things during the like so-called Dark Ages, when the Jesuits were rewriting history. Maybe the Roman Catholic Church decided to remove that information because it contains some kind of alchemical knowledge that is actually still being held in like secret societies and stuff like that.
Yeah. When I was listening to Austin Whitsitt's channel, he was doing a lot of Book of Enoch gravy talk. And so I was learning a lot just based on his scripture studies. And a lot of the things that are in that book, I mean, it's so differently written. It's like an actual story, but it reflects a lot of what's happening with like the sheep eating their own, like, the leaders of the sheep are the lambs, and the sheep will slaughter you for not following the masses. There's a lot of reflection of what's happening in society now that's in that book. So it's very fascinating, and it's a good
blueprint.
read. Yeah,
it's like a blueprint and kind of like the playbook. So that makes sense to me that they wouldn't want people to have access to that playbook. Just kind of have about people that say, oh, Nostradamus made that prediction and stuff. They didn't want that information to get out. And that's the purpose of occulting information, is because they want people to think that Enoch is this, mysterious thing that, it's like an addendum that some sects of religions accept or don't accept, when really it's just more censorship and more perversion and confusion, pulling people's minds north, east, west, south, the purpose of the news, in every direction, so that you can't come to a decision.
In the way that it's written, it's very direct. There's not room for alternative interpretation. It's pretty direct. And so it's easy to understand, unless it was just interpreted incorrectly. So I'd be interested in hearing Just Jack reinterpret it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So is there anything else about flat Earth you wanted to ask me?
Someone always complains that I don't ask specific questions, but I don't like to go into complete detail.
No worries.
Yeah. I think I'll save those questions for Bob.
Cool. All right. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, it's such an honor and a pleasure, and it's such a great way to meet you finally. Hopefully we can meet at one of the next Flat Earth fests. And
that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to organize like small meetups here in Dallas, because I love meeting people in the area, and we do need to build a community and just be able to reach out to each other just in case something catastrophic happens. And, maybe like my wife and I, we have walkie-talkies, and we're like, all right, check your batteries, make sure they're fresh. If I have to switch them out just in case the power grid goes down and we have to walk home,
Yeah, we're doing the same thing. We have our little prep room with emergency food. We've got generator. We've got a bunch of emergency batteries with solar panels. We're really taking this seriously. I mean, you never know, but after going through Hurricane Ida, you just gotta it's better to be prepared to just have that peace of mind. I mean, we see how crazy people are. So like I said, like we all keep saying, nothing surprises us anymore.
Yeah, I just because my friend, he's a prepper, he's got all these like solar power backup generators, and I'm like, oh, I guess I better get one too. So I bought a Jackery. So
I've got a couple Jackeries. I've got one of the biggest Jackeries, and then there's one that comes with solar panels. Yeah. So it's a good investment. It's a good investment, peace of mind. Like Jason has electric guitars. Imagine if everything went to complete shit and like we were all eating rice and beans and our lives were completely changed, but he could at least play his guitar.
Yeah. I mean, there's always an acoustic, but it doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah, no, he has acoustics too. I actually got him a Christmas present that has it's gonna attach to an acoustic. I can't wait. I'm gonna make a video of him opening it. Let's see if I made a good decision. Oh,
I'm sure. I mean, he's obviously really good. Like I was watching the late night video one with him. Was that David? I mean, yeah, Avocado. Was that him that was playing the drums? Yes, it was.
Yeah. I was filming them jamming, and they jammed last night and today. And then after they were jamming, I'm like, hey, let's do a little 15 commercial about this water that I've been drinking, and it turned into an hour. So I don't know what it is about this hydrogen Brown's gas, but we're all having tons of energy and just feeling a lot better from using the machine.
Well, when I first contacted you, you were like, I may have to dip out because I may have these medical issues, but you don't even seem like you have anything wrong with you.
Yeah, I'm doing okay right now, but I am prepared. Like I have different things here. And I remember before the show, I told you I might need to turn off my camera. So yeah, this is definitely, I feel like Sherlock Holmes, maybe the solution is in plain sight, but I'm glad that everything worked out today. And yeah, I just want to send out very, very positive, good feelings to your whole entire audience that, we're all going through really, really, really hard times right now, but education is key and just confidence. This is a spiritual war. So just if you feel any fear about someone messing with you, if you're an introvert and you don't like confrontation, but you don't want to be coerced, contact me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Rose. I guess we could wrap it up finally. Thank you so much for having the extended version instead of the short 50-minute version.
I know. Look at me go.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to put this on the Patreon because it's we did talk a lot about medical misinformation. So
yeah, it's what I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rose, you have a great evening and enjoy your next interview and your show and all that.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this episode of KGUP Presents. Be sure to follow Rose777 on YouTube and Rokfin by clicking the links in the description. During the next few months, I'm going to be working on my Journey to Flat Earth documentary, and I will squeeze in an interview here and there, but one of those interviews will be with Bob Nodell of Glowbusters. I hope. I'm just putting that out there in the universe, and that's just wishful thinking on my part. But I do hope he says yes. And if there is one person that I have the most respect for in this community, it would be Bob. I've learned so much during the last 2 years, and my wife and I have been learning a great deal from him and the Glowbusters team. So it would definitely be an honor and a privilege to have Bob on this show. And if you love this show, you can support us by purchasing a t-shirt, hat, or sling bag. Just go to www.kgup1065.com/shop. Links are also in the description. 100% of the profits go into running this show and the radio station KGUP FM Emerge Radio. You can check out what's playing right now by saying Google Ask KGUP FM to play, or if you have Alexa, just say Alexa, play KGUP FM. Such a tongue twister. If you do make a purchase, if you buy anything, just email me and I will gladly send you the link to watch the rest of the show, so you don't have to subscribe monthly. Again, thanks for watching KGUP Presents. Until next time, this is Mikey Jayy. I'm out.
One day liberty won't exist, and Britannia won't raise a flag, and everything you know will be past tense. Need any help with your bags up? Are you checking out early again? No one this day, you're not worried. Oh, you're not thinking about it. Thinking about it. Just sipping down your fizz and letting taste turn to delight. Take the rough with the smooth and fast food at midnight. A deafening noise that has no sound. It's your ignorance